Well, welcome back. This is Extracted season 5, episode 4. Nice. Boyles, look at you coming out of the gate like we were on the evening news. Welcome to Scotts Bluff's only Channel 5. And you are good. You're very well media trained. My name is Jared. This is my buddy Boyles. And this is Extracted. And it's been a minute because we're both gainfully employed still.
We are very busy with our day jobs, thankfully.
Yeah, thankfully.
Which we don't want to lose.
We love them. We love our day jobs.
Which the opinions expressed here today do not reflect what we do for a living.
Right.
These are just our opinions.
Yeah, sometimes I'm not even sure if they reflect me because I have to research them over and over, unlike most anything you hear from this administration, which is just spat out like a drunken frat guy trying to exercise himself of too many martinis. We actually think and doubt ourselves until we get to this point. And maybe that's the problem in this world, is the actual thinkers take too long to communicate. But damn it, here we are.
And remember how to critically think. You know, like everything we talk about is on the DOJ website. People can go read it for themselves. You know, don't take our word for it.
Yeah, and I tell you, you see like, this attack on education and stuff, and you can see like they really don't want people critically thinking.
No.
And you see right now that our president, who in part gained popularity because he was attacking the Republican establishment for constantly waging war in the Middle East, is now just skipping all that and all of his support to wage war in the Middle East.
And totally jumped the shark with taking out the supreme leader.
Right. Yeah. They're supposed to drag that out a little bit, but now we're just going to jump right into chaos. Dead servicemen already. But I bring this up because what is the root of this is distraction.
From what? Exactly.
Epstein files. I think this is just called the Epstein Wars taking place in the Middle East. And that's what this whole season is about for us is I don't care if the nuclear war breaks out. I will crawl out of my bunker with 8 arms and 2 heads and 6 tongues and a disturbing amount of penner and still pursue some truth here. Because I just came through a pretty rigorous and debilitating tax session with my wonderful accountant, and I owe money, and I will pay that money. And I have in the past been pulled over and had to pay tickets, and I know people who have had to serve time for various little things, this mistakes. All of us on the ground here are doing the things for a responsible, successful society, except for those who are trying to skate, the Epstein class, skating away from accountability.
The law doesn't apply to them.
And that's how they think. And
act.
And I think more and more people are, and more people than I've ever imagined, are saying, no, this must be disclosed, this must be shared, and those responsible. I mean, that's the thing. If those responsible for raping girls in this global sex trafficking ring aren't brought to justice, then why bring anything to justice? Like, who even are we?
That's a great question, and what are we about, and what values do we care about? Do we protect kids and the elderly and animals, and do we stand up for what's right and go after the bad guys? I mean, that's what I thought justice and at least all the Marvel movies were all about.
How's our intro so far? Are we good? Because I drank a lot of caffeine. I got a lot of information. I came out of the gate hot.
You know what? We're both coming out the gate hot because we want to talk about all the suspicious deaths that are tied to this.
To kick off the show, the Bang Bang Bunker, I'm going to try to make today. I always try to make this impossible shot
with a curve.
With a curve into the basket. Here we go. Yeah. Oh!
You did it.
Whoa! Okay, the show is going great.
Boom.
So one thing that we discussed, and you may not have seen it reflected in the first 5 minutes of this, but one thing we discussed is there's so much information, we each have to pick a brick.
Yes.
Thank you, Red Bird, writing professor of Fort Lewis College and other literary fame. He explained that to us. Like, you can't write about the whole school, and to get started, pick a brick.
Right.
So you have a brick and I have a brick today. What is your brick today?
My brick is in the interest of looking at some of the programs and the studies that Epstein funded at higher education institutions that involved the CIA and involved really brutal, sexually violent studies on young women, and just that flew, and nobody flinched at any of those things just because he was giving money to these universities.
Does this tie in with the $25,000 every quarter to the gynecologist at the university?
Well, it's along the same lines, I guess, of just that payola kind of if I can use that as a verb, that kind of a situation. But these were six figures of money that were given. And so, just the fact that these academic minds that people revered were suggesting via email of such subversive sexual studying, it's hard to get your mind around if you're a decent person.
This is so real because in the New York Times today, elite doctors served Jeffrey Epstein while treating his girls.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm sure if anyone had any sort of a sexually transmitted infection or disease, or they were pregnant or had an infection from an abortion or what have you, he had a service. But again, as we've talked about, there's been babies born and what happened to them. And then you hear these stories of Epstein going all around the world and ripping brand new babies from their mothers and then bringing them back to the United States and putting them into adoption. And there was a money transaction out of that.
Yeah.
And where that went. So it's like baby trafficking.
Well, and there is plenty of documentation on he and Maxwell paying daycares and schools and etc. I don't know the result. There's even a back and forth where he started a daycare, maybe it was in St. Thomas or something.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us more about what you know with your brick.
Well, I also read a really heartbreaking article on one of the victims who has Down syndrome but doesn't have the physical characteristics of Down syndrome. Mm-hmm. But she looks like a doll. Mm-hmm. And her diary, because they used her like an incubator. She gave birth at least twice and had more than one abortion. And she writes what that was like. And I mean, how do you do that to a young girl, let alone someone with special needs? And then they didn't contact her, and they kept her locked up, and she was actually locked up at Les Wexner's. And it's just like the attitude that these men had, that not all human lives are equal, and that if you were a woman, a person of color, a gay person, that and especially to this group of men that were Jewish, if you were a goyim, which is a non-Jew, you were cattle. You didn't matter. So who cares if your life was snuffed out, or you were raped, or tortured and suffered as an adult for the rest of your life because of what happened? It's like, this is what they got off on. And I feel like we just went.
No, not at all.
Because it's heavy shit.
It is heavy, and I think there's just so many allegations, and there's so many examples. I mean, there's the one attorney has written up this whole dossier, and one of the people that have come to her is this little girl who's in a photo, and she has a mark on her arm, and in the details, she's bleeding from her groin, and when she's trying to communicate with the outside world, she's getting threatening messages.
And that wound came from Leon Black, who is the CEO, or was the CEO of Blackstone Capital.
Mm-hmm. And I think owns Life Touch Photography,
yes.
Or at least has some subsidiary.
Yeah. So, like, while you think your kids are getting their school pictures taken,
smile. Guess
who's going through a database of little kids and looking for ones to groom?
Now, there's this thing you have talked about, which sounds far-fetched when you start hearing about it, but then you realize that Epstein built this temple on his island. It's on his island. What is this thing?
He has an exact replica of the Temple of Solomon that's painted and has, it looks like almost like an Egyptian motif, but what was that used for? Why was that on the island? I mean, like, you wouldn't have something like that unless you were going to use it, I would think.
What is this temple?
Well, back in the ancient days, what they would do was a lot of like sacrificing and terrible things. And, is that what Epstein's purposes were on this island? Maybe. Who knows?
Well, and you see this actual email from Epstein, and he's not on the island, but he emails the staff to say, bury everything. I'd like to see the work begin immediately. And then, of course, on Zorro Ranch, where we are, thank you to the officials in New Mexico, at least trying to do something. I just got a kink in my neck.
Oh.
Epstein!
But
Damn,
then
it's the Israeli, it's the Mossad.
that ranch, which was the Zorro Ranch, has been bought by Don Huffhines, who is
Looks like an evil free control.
and he's a Trump supporter and friend of Epstein, and they've renamed it. I thought I remembered the name.
Yeah, because they want to make it a Christian retreat. And listen, Christians around the world, would you please stop letting these guys use your religion to protect themselves? They're using Jesus like a prophylactic on the
Right.
worst crimes.
I'm surprised that when Pam Bondi puts on that gold cross, it doesn't just start searing into her skin.
Oh yeah, and then the spokeswoman too. I mean,
Oh yeah, Levitt, Caroline
yeah,
Levitt.
Caroline Levitt.
But just this, there is a lot of in the world of intelligence, there is a huge element of black magic in the occult, and you can research that, and it goes back to Aleister Crowley and a whole bunch of men that thought about how to use that to gain control and power, and that was kind of what Epstein was really consumed with, from what I've read. And so you wonder what really was pulling the strings behind all of this, because as we know, Epstein was not the top of the pyramid with this global pedophile ring.
Well, it seems just become casual conversation now that he was an Israeli agent, if not a double agent, and because you can't go to Bill Gates and convince him to be a part of a thing, but you can certainly invite him to a party and then have
Sexual blackmailing.
I mean, why were there cameras even in the bathrooms? Why are there cameras in every room?
Well, as what the intelligence community learned from organized crime is that sexual blackmail is a really useful tool.
Yeah.
And so if there's cameras everywhere that can capture any and everything, and then you use that on someone to get them to invest with you or do whatever or pass your policy.
And all these guys who, many of them loathe Trump, you can see in the emails, are trying hard to get him elected because they know they have to have an ally.
Well, and that he's going to get them all off.
Yeah.
Or make sure that they...
Okay, good point. And I know we might be veering from the
okay.
brick a little bit, but, Alex Acosta, who gave Epstein the sweetheart deal, he got those orders from Barr, who likely came from above him.
And thank you for bringing that up, because the BCCI bank scandal, which happened in the 80s, that Epstein had accounts at, the Rothschilds, Edward Safra, all these, even Robert Maxwell. BCCI Bank was also known to have Saudi accounts and money, and it was like a money laundering bank. And there are emails in the Epstein files that talk about how the bank procured underage prepubescent girls to take care of the needs of the Saudi investors.
Yes, I have read that.
And so, as somebody mentioned with this Sultan bin Sulayem, I'm forgetting how his whole name is, but if I saw it, I would say it right, that maybe when he and Epstein met, he was like the son of the Sultan at that time. But these relationships are decades old. They go back generations. Like, this global cult is not anything new. So it's like, how do you take that down?
Do not be shocked by anything. I mean,
No.
I think we have to grow up as a country because we're constantly getting suckered into the same cycle and be like, okay, we're going to own this place. This is our country. We're paying the taxes. We're actually paying the dues. And we pay the consequences when there's not enough money to fund what our family needs or our community requires to be a good place to be. It's time for us to own that and say, we're going to defend it too, because right now it's being pulled from our hands by people trying to cover their ass from this ridiculous sex trafficking ring.
And again, and I've said it before, the fact that people let Epstein operate unchecked, knowing what he was doing, and they look the other way, even like when somehow Epstein worked with the Reagan administration and Les Wexner, and they took what was, the CIA's airline that was running drugs into the United States and moved it into Ohio, and it became the airline for the limited brands. And,
Like clothing?
Les Wexner.
They do Wexners everywhere.
He's Limited,
Yeah.
Victoria's Secret, Bed Bath & Beyond, Abercrombie and Fitch. I mean, a whole bunch of brands like that. And then even with Abercrombie and Fitch, like, their CEO was in trouble for the same sort of shit that Peter Thiel's done, and that Les Wexner's done.
Well, and again, if you're like, I'd like a real world example of this Les Wexner, here he is being deposed, and he's saying too much. He's talking about the Rothschilds. He's talking about these big companies, Fortune 500 companies, and his lawyer leans in and said, "Your next answer better be 5 words or less, or I'll fucking kill you."
Yeah, he says, if you say more than 5 words, I will effing kill you. And in the Epstein files is the contract the Rothschilds wrote to Epstein to procure his services for $25 million.
Mm-hmm.
So he was evading taxes for them and laundering their money and doing all sorts of terrible things, getting paid a whole lot of money. And then Les Wexner makes him his power of attorney, and he's getting money there. And then he's a Mossad agent, and he's, you know, the kind of like pulling the wool over people's eyes that this guy did at the levels that he did. But anyway, going back to these suspicious deaths.
Oh, okay. Let's go into part 2 of the show. Here we go.
Do it.
I got a cramp. Here we go. He's gonna fight through the cramp. Oh, that was terrible.
Oh, that's okay.
Terrible. Okay. All right. Coming off a cramp there. Okay. So again, this is something that just happens and happens and happens. Mm-hmm. Suspicious deaths
or suicides.
It goes clear back, and this is something. There was a great documentary series on Netflix that covered. It was called Toxic. I have to look it up. I'm so sorry, people, but it talked about Trump and his many business failings and how he got involved with the Russian mafia, and how he became to be the guy who he is now, as a man indebted to all of our worst enemies. And one of those stories is in his Atlantic City casino.
Yep.
Shortly after his dad tried to bail him out, his dad showed up with $4 million and bought chips to try to bail him out. And he still couldn't do it. So the casino is failing. They've got to do a press conference. They've got to answer to these questions. What happened? And there's a helicopter crash. Mm-hmm. And that helicopter crash, and I'm going to look this up, Stephen Hyde, Mark Grassinger Estes, Jonathan Benanov,
yep.
and 2 other people are killed in this crash. Trump was supposed to be on that helicopter.
At the last minute.
Yeah, last minute he decides not to. And, okay, somewhat suspicious, but he does the worst thing possible. These people die in the crash, and then when Trump, eventually is asked, because then he gets a delay, right? He's asked about the fail of the casino. He blames his dead business partners. Yeah.
Yep. And
it is weird to say that Epstein is right in saying there's not a good cell in Donald Trump's body.
But the fact that you have it's like that saying about the pot calling the kettle black. Like, mm-hmm. for Epstein to say that Trump's the most evil person he's ever met in his life, mm-hmm. after what he's done.
Yeah. Well, you just look at the allegations, the death of the children, the death of the puppies, and it's all at the hands of Trump. It makes sense.
It does make sense. And even Les Wexner's tax attorney, mm-hmm. was supposed to testify and was shot in the face like 2 days before that and mm-hmm. killed. And that was right around when Epstein took over his finances and straightened them out. But there's a ton of these suicide looking, like even Jean-Luc Brunel, found dead in a prison cell like Epstein. Suicide.
Well, and even Jean-Luc Brunel, here he is in France, and he has trafficked little girls, and he's been involved in pedophilia, and then he dies just like Epstein mm-hmm. purportedly did, which by Epstein's brother says he did not kill himself. He died, and then there might be someone you would want to talk to about Epstein in the prison cell, and that would be Efren Reyes, who was Epstein's cellmate, who also turned up dead shortly after talking to federal investigators.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is a fun game. I'm just going to name people and you tell me about. These are the people who have died. And if you don't know, then I might, okay?
Okay.
Mark Middleton.
Mark Middleton worked in the Clinton administration and was Epstein's contact at the White House the 17 times that Epstein went to visit. And his death is most suspicious because he was found hanging by an electrical cord and had managed to do that and shoot himself with a shotgun in the chest, but yet the shotgun was found 30 feet away. And the judge sealed the case and sealed all the pictures and all of that. So, like, how did those two things can't be true at the same time? How did Mark Middleton do that?
Talented in life and death.
And something went down, though, with Epstein and Mark Middleton, because within a month of the last visit of Epstein at the White House to see Mark Middleton is ousted by the Clintons and then found in this situation.
Okay, one of my favorites, Steve Hoffenberg.
Steve Hoffenberg, businessman and early associate of Epstein's, was linked to the Towers Financial Ponzi scheme, which the SEC considered one of the greatest Ponzi's
It's like
in
$475 million.
That's right.
Yeah.
He kind of didn't he served his 18 years.
It was 18 months.
18 months.
Yeah. And he, this is the thing about him. No, he served 18 years. He did serve 18 years. It's interesting because you can see why these guys might fear consequences outside of just being punished and publicly humiliated. Is it kind of changes them.
Mm-hmm.
And this would end in his death because he comes out of prison after serving 18 years and a big fine, and he goes on an apology tour.
Mm-hmm.
And he probably to them looks like a pretty serious vulnerability.
And is reaching out and befriending
Maria Farmer.
Maria Farmer, who she and her sister Annie Farmer were trafficked to Epstein, and part of all of this. And so, and actually those Farmer sisters were held kind of captive at Les Wexner's house for a really long time. But yes, so Stephen Hoffenberg starts making amends with the victims.
And then he's found dead in his apartment. There was no foul play suspected. They say natural causes. He was in a decomposed state. He'd been there a minute.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem like there was too much of an investigation around the situation.
No, there really wasn't. I mean, even there was Thomas Bowers, former head of Deutsche Bank Wealth Management. He handled Epstein's accounts. He was found dead in California in late 2019 by suicide. There was a Russian whistleblower. His name was Valentin Brokenschmidt. He was also an informant that provided information on Deutsche Bank's records, which included Trump's financial material. And his death in 2022 was ruled accidental, although later became the subject of conspiracy theories. So, again, there's enough things pointing in a manner where if you're a critical thinker, you can kind of come to an assumption.
More rapid fire here. Carolyn Andriano.
Yes, Carolyn Andriano. I know I had looked her up. She was a survivor and had testified against Ghislaine, and although had seemed fine and her parents said she wasn't depressed, she was found dead in a hotel room in 2023 of an accidental overdose.
No, the accidental overdose.
It's amazing how many of these people that are found accidental overdose with heroin and the ties to the CIA and to heroin and to this murder for hire that was
accidental overdose. It makes you sound like you tripped and fell on a heroin needle. It just and they seemingly did. Okay, here we go. Ronald Eppinger.
I don't know if I know who that is.
Okay, well, he was a Miami trafficker linked to Epstein, and he was murdered before he was supposed to testify in 2006.
Okay. Yeah. There's a theme.
There's so many. Thomas Bowers.
Yeah, that was who I just was talking about.
Oh, you just talked about Thomas Bowers. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, some of the things that they were quickly sealed and such. Even Donald Trump's former physician, Dr.
Harold Bornstein.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Okay, how about, I don't know how to get Valentin Brooks.
Oh, yeah, that was who I just mentioned.
You just mentioned him too? Okay,
the whistleblower. Sorry. That's okay. I butchered his name. So.
Okay.
But the amount of Russian people that are tied to these guys too, and I've read things where Epstein is talking about making money off of a pandemic. Mm-hmm. I mean,
well, I love it. We call them the Epstein class. These are people who are emailing each other about how climate change, and they're not wrong, is going to coal the population. Mm-hmm. Okay, we have so many of these. There's so many. We could go through. What was the one? Steve Alembic. Do you know him?
I don't think so.
I'll go ahead. He was a Trump donor, co-founder and chief data scientist at SMA Communications in Boca Raton. And he ends up dead. I don't even know how or why. I don't know if you know much about him. We'll come back to him. Dennis Shield died at Trump Tower under suspicious circumstances with no autopsy. That was for religious reasons, they said, but suspected overdose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And he had been working with Bethany Frankel.
No, they were dating.
Oh, they were dating.
They were dating.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And he died suddenly, but. It's like, especially Virginia Giuffre is another example of.
That's my
she was
hero, just
clear,
a hero.
Yeah, clear about I'm not depressed. I'm, if something happens to me, It's not my doing. And, before she took her life, they say someone had tried to hit her with a bus or a car or something, put her in the hospital. And it was all because she wrote a book and was talking. And, I bring up Nancy Guthrie and Savannah Guthrie's mom. There's links where her husband's a political strategist, and his partner in his company is Joe Lockton, who was the equivalent of Caroline Leavitt for Bill Clinton during the Lewinsky scandal. Excuse me. And Savannah Guthrie was the first journalist to interview Virginia Gouffet on TV and to start to interview the victims. And was this taking her mom away to silence her? Because if you remember, and I'm not trying to start a conspiracy theory, but when she's on TV addressing the note, she's saying, we understand, and they're willing to pay. And how come no one's found the mom?
Yeah, and this mainstream media stuff just bugs the piddle out of me. I don't want anybody missing their mother, but there's so many things that we could be talking about. And this took place the day after they released the bigger load of Epstein files.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, it's just like, even if there is no tie, I want this woman to be found safe, but the authorities are working on it. Let's not distract the world from what really needs to take place here. And that's, I don't know, any number of things like addressing climate change or this war being a distraction, or that we're closing rural hospitals at a breakneck pace, or that schools need. I mean, there's a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I think Savannah Guthrie's mom would probably appreciate the fact that we're focusing on things that might help the future of this country. And while we can have some coverage of it, it doesn't need to be wall to wall. It's just such a disservice to everyone who needs information.
Well, and think back to when she went missing, and I know we talk about flooding the zone and how there's so much bonkers stuff. Maduro was kidnapped. Trump thinks he's going to buy Greenland. Nancy Guthrie goes missing. The Trump files, or Epstein files get released. The Olympics take place, and here we are now, and we've invaded Iran and taken out the supreme leader. And it's only Sunday afternoon, right?
No, it's just oh, really?
What more? And again, remember he came out and said he's going to release everything on UFOs? Oh, no. There was a huge internal pushback on that.
Yeah, I know. You just have to keep throwing crap. I mean, that's all he does.
That's what he's doing. He throws shit against the wall and you see what sticks.
But imagine, though, here we have 150 girls killed in an Iranian school yesterday, and it's all because these guys couldn't keep it in their pants. We have people shot in the streets of Minneapolis because these guys couldn't keep it in their pants.
And whatever's in the remaining 3 million files is so heinous.
Yeah.
And if it really were all bullshit and a house, why not open the floodgates and let people see?
That's the thing. They've undone themselves so many times. And to release some accusations and then pull them, really? It's like my kids don't even try to get away with stuff like that because they know it's so infantile. Okay, here we go. Jeff Thomas.
Oof.
Oh, I'll tell you.
Oh, yes.
Are you ready?
Peter Thiel's boyfriend.
That's right. And if you're Peter Thiel's boyfriend, A, what are you thinking? And B, you're going to be toast.
But he's married, and then here's this guy on the side.
Yeah.
And Peter Thiel is like an architect of all of this stuff with Epstein, and he's getting off on this war stuff. And now they want to do away with LGBT. I butchered the words. LGBTIA. Yes.
Yeah, plus. Yeah.
Thank you. Plus. And so it's like, why would you do that to your own people? But because he's doing the equivalent of what Epstein did to young male models. And that's been documented. And he's more wealthier, he's even more wealthier and sophisticated and smarter than Epstein ever was.
Yeah, and Thiel is, like, if you take the conversation we're having right now, and if you have any disbelief about any of it, it kind of parallels where you might have disbelief about an election being fixed. But then you look at people like Peter Thiel and how he relates to both Epstein and fixed elections, because he has said...
Not to mention J.D. Vance.
And he has said that they have found a way to pass what they believe in without having to deal with public opinion.
Yeah, because now what they're trying to do with the midterms coming up, it's just, again, we're all in this state of deers in headlight because... so much is happening that you're paralyzed.
All right, here we go. Do you know Joe Recaray?
No.
Okay, this is the Palm Beach police detective who led the Epstein investigation and urged officials for justice, died following a short illness in 2018. Yeah, and he was 50.
Probably because he saw the deal that Alex Acosta and Pam Bondi made with Epstein and was going, hey, that's not enough.
Yeah.
We aren't prosecuting hard enough.
Steve Bing. You know Steve Bing? No, this guy, he managed to fall from, I think it was high up in a hotel.
Well,
Yeah, he jumped from his LA apartment building in June 2020 after talking to the FBI about Epstein.
Well, Jeff Thomas was also a fall to his death. Too.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Suicide, yeah. These are just some of the people.
And Ivana Trump
The
stairs.
Yeah, fell down the stairs.
Buried on the golf course.
It is weird if you're a friend of Putin or Trump or Epstein. All these people are a little bit clumsy. And you might be thinking, just like I've been saying, a lot of this is so far-fetched. Well, let me just show you something here. New York Times, key witness who disputed an ICE account of fatal Texas shooting dies in a car accident. Now, there's a lot of coincidences that what's happening here. And I think, again, if some of this population in America could believe QAnon, then maybe put the brakes on that madness that was served up to you by Epstein and Bannon and look to the America that needs your help. And it's the one that's being taken by the people that have likely had a hand in the deaths of many of those that we talk about today.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of them. Let me see what there's another one here that H.R. McMaster.
Yes, H.R. McMaster.
Yeah.
H.R. McMaster Sr. worked for Bush and Clinton, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. He was in politics for a long time.
And his son Junior worked in the first administration. It wasn't like, remember when there was like that weird thing with like Corey Lewandowski, who I think is Kristi Noem's lover.
Oh yeah, he is.
And who was the real pretty girl that testified? Hope Hicks.
Oh yeah.
H.R. McMaster was all involved with that in that first term.
Mm-hmm.
But his dad died. That they think suspiciously.
Yeah, because there was a nurse that was going to be charged with the death of him.
Right.
Yeah. So that's something to look into. And it's funny, again, they do such a good job of making you understand how the unbelievable is believable. Because you mentioned Noam and Lewandowski. Now, there was this airplane incident that happened recently.
The blanket incident.
The blanket. They're on the plane. And they've forgotten a blanket, quote unquote, right? It's Kristi Noem's blanket, she says. Lewandowski, her affair, is he fires the pilot because he's so upset they forgot this blanket. The pilot says, well, if you fire me, who's going to fly it? So he rehires the pilot. And then it turns out it's not a blanket at all. It's a bag with something in it that she forgot that could not be found by anyone else. And I listen, I'm not some jackass making stuff up in my basement. I'm just making these awesome shots from a distance.
Do it!
Oh, God, this ball's really hard to grab. Yeah.
Oh, so close.
Oh, my God. And we have just talked about some of the deaths. Bill Nojay. Here we go. That's the co-chair of Donald Trump's New York campaign committee. Shot himself at Riverside Cemetery in 2016 while due in court for fraud charges related to his legal work.
I mean, if you thought that, like, the body count with the Clintons was robust, this just...
Well, and you mentioned Harold Bornstein, but here's this guy who looks like if the Lorax were a human, and he's protecting Trump, and then they raid his office, and then...
Yeah, and then he ends up dead.
Steve Allendick.
You already said that, though.
I did?
Yep.
Gosh.
I think we got them all.
Oh, yeah, I did. He was the Boca Raton guy. No, there's more.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure.
I'm sure
Jason Hairston, to me, I don't know.
No, yeah.
But you know what, Jason Hairston, that's just a broader conversation because he's a football player who likely died of CTE.
Yeah.
And
went hunting with Don Jr.
Yeah, he tied it. And, I mean, in all cases, it looks like he's just a typical American success story. Maybe not one you'd agree with. Starts his sporting goods company, but I think CTE
took him.
That's why he would eventually kill himself. And which is something we need to pay closer attention to because that is a terrible thing happened. There was a kid that played football here just over, I think it was Mullen, and he just he's been going through that. But okay, that's just some. Did I mention Thomas Bowers?
Yes,
I did. What the hell's wrong with me?
Bowers.
Oh, you did. Sorry, I might have been looking at my computer while you were
well,
talking
at least people know we do our homework.
Yeah, we do. We're here for you. This is...
Let me tell you, I'm single. By Friday night, I spent doing research.
Oh, my God.
On suspicious deaths.
While I want her to hook up, I also want her to stay single because this is super helpful. But you have plenty of blackmail material now because I keep touching your knee with my knee.
I know, it's fun.
When it comes out.
It's like
if she ends up dead, it was an accident.
Right?
She was tripped and fell in a pile of cocaine. I tried to help her by holding her head in it, and she perished.
And electric cord around my neck.
Yeah.
Go figure. Okay, throw it. Get it in there.
This is the one. This is for America.
Do it.
Dun, 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 dun. Oh! We'll be back for more opportunities for America, for you, with Extracted Season 5.
And 5 pointers.
And, 5 pointers. The rare and powerful 5-point shot. Do you want to have the last word while I find the stop button?
My stomach keeps growling, so I gotta go get some food.
I know. I'm so scared. I don't know if I'm going to be there. Oh, God. Where's
your
the...
mouse?
I don't know.
Oh, you're on the other screen.
I don't know. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Oh, man. Phew!
We got to feed this lady before I die in here from cannibalism.
I'm hangry.